Hey Anna,
Hey, Mike.
so we've just finished Billy's first 60 days of Antinol, and wow, what a difference.
Really? Oh my gosh, what have you noticed?
Well, he's shiner, he's much more energetic. Not that he wasn't beforehand, but you can see the difference. But remember, I told you he used to have that little limp in his back left paw that he'd hurt himself when he was a pup. He
Yes,
doesn't seem
yes.
to do that much anymore.
What, the hop, skip, and the jump?
Yeah, yeah. So it's like his joints are a bit better. And we actually had friends around this weekend who'd noticed that there was something good about Billy. And I was telling them about Antinol, and they said, "Oh, what's in it?" I said, "Well, green lip mussel." And they said, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh, well, I don't know. I'll have to ask Anna," as I always do. So
Well,
for next
green,
time, what should I say? What's so great
well,
about green lip mussel?
green lip mussel, it comes from New Zealand. It's the only place that green lip mussels live. And what's great about the green lip mussel is that it is what's known as a broad spectrum source of omega 3. And the reason dogs need to take omega 3 is that their bodies don't make it themselves. So, unless they're getting it through their diet, which can be omega 6 heavy. And it's very important to have a balance between omega 6 and omega 3. So it's normally through supplements that omega 3 is given. And green lip mussel is unique in its having everything from EPA, DHA, and ETA. So all the main omega 3s.
And how about Binks and Prudence? They must be much better as well.
Yeah, well, they've been on it for over a year and they've been on green lip mussel forever since I've had them. So Prue's 10 now. So she's had green lip mussel since the first day I brought her home, to be honest, but not Antinol. And I only wish I'd discovered Antinol earlier. I really honestly mean that because it's an oil rather than a powder. So its bioavailability, that means, its effectivity to get absorbed quickly and efficiently by the body is greater.
So people listening now and they want to discover Antinol for themselves, where do they go?
Well, all you have to do is go to Antinol, ANTINOL.co.uk, and then type in Anna Webb and get your special discount. Hello, I'm Anna Webb, and welcome to A Dog's Life. This week, we're discussing Pet-Nups and why they're actually on the rise at the moment in the UK. And as ever, this episode is powered by Antinol. Ben Evans, welcome to A Dog's Life.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Ben, you're a lawyer with the Co-op Legal Group, I think.
That's right. Yes, I'm one of the solicitors within the family department at Co-op Legal Services.
Fantastic. Now, today we're going to be chatting about what's been very big in America for a few years, actually, which is this whole concept of setting up a pet-nup when you're in a couple situation and you bring a dog, or I guess also for cats, into your life when that difficult situation often occurs of a breakup.
That's right. Yes, very much historically an American thing, should we say. A lot of people still believe that it's exclusive to celebrities and high profile individuals, but absolutely anybody can get themselves a pet-nup agreement or prenuptial agreement, as most people associate them with.
Yes, I know this whole Pet-Nup. I mean, I think that's quite a media way of kind of bringing it across to people. In your experience, how many people, have approached you or your firm to set up one of these?
Well, we deal with a lot of prenuptial agreements. So, just a bit of context: a prenuptial agreement or it is an agreement that um, prospective couples who are about to marry enter into in order to agree the division of matrimonial assets in the event of their separation. However, you can also have exclusively a what's called a pet nuptial agreement, which is exactly the same, but purely focused upon the care and well-being of your pets. I would say most people have it encapsulated or incorporated within a general agreement as a whole. But certainly there are individuals who would like to focus purely upon the pets and their care in the event of separation, because as of course everyone's familiar with, pets are very much family to many of us. So ensuring their well-being during difficult times feels like an important part of that, doesn't it?
Oh, without doubt, Ben. But you've hit on something here, you see, because it's interesting. In 2022, there was the Animal Welfare Sentience Bill that was passed and has become law that clearly identifies animals as being sentient, so that they have feelings, they have emotions, and they are very much part of the family. However, in a court of law, the massive irony is, certainly in family law, I understand that dogs are still and cats are still property in a court of law. So that, in negotiating who takes the dog, it would be the same kind of conversation as who has the car. They are
Yeah,
considered as, inanimate objects like a laptop.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, the current law treats them as objects, or chattels is another more technical term perhaps to describe them. But yeah, there's no difference to how they're treated to objects around the house. So clearly, the public perception of how pets are viewed compared to how the law treats it is not in sync. And there's no, if you were to go to court, for example, to deal with a dispute, there's no express test for pet welfare when it comes to proceedings that involve the division of matrimonial finances. However, you've touched upon the recent change in law. There is certainly a change in shift in how the courts view pets, which is positive, but there's still a long way to go, I would say.
Yes. So, what would your advice be to a couple? I mean, with a Pet-Nup, for example, do you actually have to be married, or can you just be, living together? Because the same emotions and the same dynamic really would exist in both situations.
Yeah, of course. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be married or even intending to get married. A prenuptial agreement um, is essentially a written agreement between parties, or between couples who are about to or planning to get married. But you don't necessarily, you can enter any form of agreement that you wish. I think the sensible thing to do would be to have this discussion. It can feel sensitive, and obviously the perception is that if you're talking about what would happen in the event of you separating, then why is this conversation coming up? It
Yes.
can make people feel a bit uncomfortable. But communication is key to this,
Yes.
to put things in place.
Well, absolutely. Particularly, in the event of a split, people go their own way, as it were. And, maybe once they're single again, they may not, want the commitment of a dog, because a dog is a daily commitment. They're not a convenience, they're a commitment. Someone might move into a high rise with no garden, and in fact their accommodation would be deemed perhaps inappropriate for the dog. There must be, in sorting out the custody, surely the courts, if it got to that level, would assess the best owner for the dog ongoing, down to their lifestyle, their accommodation, and the person that would have the most time to spend with the dog. Would that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. If it did come down to it, and there was a dispute around who would be responsible for the care of the dog, then it absolutely is a decision that could be made by the court. But again, the issue here, of course, is that it is, or pets are treated no differently to items in the home. So whilst there could be some consideration by a judge about what would be in the pet's best interests, ultimately it may not be so decisive, shall we say, as to change the what the outcome may be, so to speak. I mean, ultimately, the purpose of entering into these agreements is to avoid it ever to getting to that point, and to try and specify early on what would happen in the event of a separation.
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's I think, as well, to take a leaf out of the actual out of your dog's book, as it were, because dogs are social creatures. They don't really want confrontation. And to actually think, well, if we really love this dog, let's not make this stressful and so on. Let's try and work this out as a dog would work it out, and potentially even allow for time each with the dog. Have you ever seen that happen?
Yes, of course. I mean, it is a sensitive topic. You quite often there's certainly awareness around how the impact of a separation or a dispute has upon individuals themselves, but also the children within the home. But there's certainly a lack of awareness and surrounding the impact it has upon pets, and understandably any change would be or could be distressing to a pet that's going in a household where there is a separation going on. And sadly, it can be the case that the pet is used as a pawn, almost a means of maintaining control, perhaps, over an ex-partner, and it certainly sours the relationship between them when they're trying to sort out what are, quite frankly, important decisions to be made. So we do come across disputes where arrangements are made to agree how the care of a pet would work. That includes arrangements for seeing the pet individually or having care of the pet individually as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, because the other thing these days with all the technology around us is the confusion a bit with the microchip, because it's obviously a legal thing to have your dog's microchipped, but the microchip only has one name on it, and that's generally the name that's considered as the keeper in inverted commas of the dog. So that again, perhaps maybe microchip databases have to be a little bit more flexible on that, maybe change their databases, add two people to it. I don't know how that would work, but I think that can also throw a bit of a confusion into the mix if the keeper is clearly the person that perhaps isn't best suited. Might have got a new job flying around the world every other day, or something, and so that dog's going to be shoved from pillar to post with daycare centers and the like, rather than being in a secure family environment every day.
Yeah, absolutely. That you've touched upon perhaps a topic, as in microchipping, a topic that could be incorporated within a Pet-Nup. Um, you know, because when you hear the phrase Pet-Nup, it sounds simple enough, doesn't it? It's you can simply have an agreement that sorts out the care arrangements for the pet, such as a week on, week off arrangement, for example, where the care of the pet is shared. But there are also a lot of specifics involved. You yourself, have care of a pet yourselves. You think about all the aspects that are involved in the care of the pet. You've got the costs of looking after the pet, such as food and housing, your vet bills, insurance payments, even responsibility for fines, or breach of the law, for example. How are those to be dealt with? These are the type of specifics that could be set out within an agreement and can codify or to put in writing exactly what would happen in various situations.
Yeah, and you know what? It might also, if this did become sort of part of, I don't know, a dog license scheme, perhaps, that couples taking on a dog, perhaps, because for me at the moment, I feel it's too easy to buy a dog. They're available to buy with a click of the mouse now over the internet and all the rest of it. And I think perhaps we need to slow down the buying process for a dog. I really believe we've got to make it more difficult. And perhaps if, you are married or in a couple situation, to face the fact that part of purchasing this dog as a couple situation, you have to look at this, you have to fill in more paperwork, and you have to really be rational about the future. Because I think a lot of dogs are bought in the excitement of, oh yeah, let's get a dog. But then, I know people that a month in, they're like, crumbs, I'm exhausted. I didn't realize I've got to walk my dog every day. And, there's all of that. So to hide, and then dogs are being dumped in rescue all around us at the moment. There really is a crisis. So I just feel that perhaps this could actually really help keep dogs, out of rescue, and perhaps make people think twice about getting that dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say that it's too easy or very easy to get a dog or any other pet for that matter. It's also very easy to get married, but it's also more difficult to get divorced and go through a separation. So absolutely, there's definitely reasons there for being cautious about firstly getting a pet in the first place and making sure that it's something that is within your means and that you're capable of maintaining. A recent PDSA report said that 30% of UK adults have a dog and 24% have a cat. Well, I can tell you that in 2022, over 2 in 5 marriages, 42%, ended in divorce. And of course, that's only those that are going through a divorce. But the statistics can't lie. A lot of animals and pets would have been caught up in those separations as well. So absolutely, I think there is a call or a need to really think carefully as to whether having a pet in the first place is appropriate, and having those discussions for having a Pet-Nup agreement so that it's clear what would happen in the unfortunate event of there being a separation down the line.
Yeah, 100%. No, those figures are quite scary, actually. 42%, my word, of all marriages. Gosh, yes, and there'll be loads of animals caught up in that. Do you think, actually, Ben, then the law might change, in the actual courts, to attribute sentience to our pets? Because I mean, these laws often were invented in the 1800s, and like the Theft Act, for example, I think that was 1968, that attached dogs and animals as property, which obviously, when dogs were being stolen a lot, it's calmed down a bit, but through the pandemic, dogs were being stolen all over the place as they had a market value higher than Class A drugs for a while, when everyone had to have a dog during the pandemic. So they were being stolen to order. And of course, in the court of law, they're property. So it didn't tally, with what's actually going on at an emotional level now with our pets, because we're living with pets now in a very different way to how we did 100 years ago. So surely the law should change a bit.
Yes, of course. You've touched upon a piece of legislation yourself earlier, and pet abduction now is an offence that has been introduced in the last couple of years. There still is, however, that disconnect that needs to be resolved. Unfortunately, the pace of life these days changes dramatically, and sadly, it does take a bit of time for the law to reflect that change, because it is down to the government to introduce these bills and to introduce legal changes that can then be interpreted in the courts. So there's some discretion by the courts to take into account the welfare of an animal in making a decision, and I'm purely talking about the division of matrimonial finances here specifically. But there is certainly a justified reason for changing the law to bring it more into line with what I think most people would expect to be the case when it comes to these disputes.
Well, that's good, isn't it? Because I think, you're right. It's a fast-paced world, and a lot of change is happening, and more people are wanting pets and benefiting from the huge joy of owning, a dog that gets you out, you get talking to people. Psychologically, it's absolutely brilliant. And then, the reverse is the awful psychological warfare that us humans would put on people using the dog, as you said earlier, as a pawn. I could see that happening, and it just makes you think, oh gosh, why would we do something like that?
Yeah, of course. And you know, a if you think about it, a Pet-Nup, going back to our original topic, which is it isn't about expecting the worst. They're about planning for your pet's best interests. That's what the purpose of these agreements are intended, and certainly um, getting advice and having an agreement drawn up can save, well, not only individuals but pets themselves, no doubt, an incredible amount of distress in avoiding being caught up in these disputes between separating individuals.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's preemptive, it's planning ahead, it's being mature, I guess, of the situation. And, all being well, joys of having a dog as an addition into your lifestyle should make everyone happier, really.
Well, isn't the most popular reason people get a pet, and maybe a dog specifically, is for companionship and for love, and it's why you enter into a relationship as well, frankly,
Yes.
isn't it?
Well,
To
you
have
hope
that
so.
companionship.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We think that is, yeah, we'll assume that's what most people do.
Yes.
So absolutely, but it doesn't always work out, sadly, as we've said and as we know, and as it's about thinking ahead for the future, and having these conversations, and just being pragmatic about things
Mm.
so that you can avoid situations or disputes arising.
I mean, in the Pet-Nup, I'm just thinking about it now, a little bit more about how, if I was going to sign one and everything, would it, and you'd taken on a brand new puppy that needed so much work, needed to go to puppy classes, you've got to get out there, come rain, snow, with this puppy, work through the queues. Would it sort of specify, each of you have to take it in turns to go to puppy training classes? You know how it builds in a relationship. It's like, listen, I've walked the dog every day today. It's like your turn.
Yeah.
I've got to go and do something else. You've got to walk the dog. And then they go, no, I can't walk the dog. And then a huge row occurs around walking the dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you've touched upon it there, really, and it's going back to the original point about communicating and really having these discussions, because by having these discussions, you actually think, okay, what is the impact of us having a pet on our lives, and what is it that it actually entails? Because it sounds very romantic, doesn't it? Getting married sounds romantic as well, and it should be. It absolutely should be. But an important and significant repercussions that come from both marriage and owning a pet. And so communication and having these discussions early days is I believe essential to being able to think and get individuals to think carefully as to whether this is the right decision to make, because the last thing that you want to do is ending up in a situation where neither of you are capable or able to manage the care of the pet, and sadly it will result in that pet having to be rehomed, for example. So yeah, this is why it's important to have these discussions, I would say.
Yeah, no, really good. And as you say, it might actually put people off buying a dog. Although I think a lot of people are bringing dogs into their life now and delaying having children, and potentially, to perhaps have a dummy run with a dog. And if the commitments can't be put into a dog, then, you've got to question the child aspect, don't you, really? So I think lots of thought that goes into it, and how a dog might be able to, bridge lots of gaps between people as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, you've touched upon really what is a change or a shift in society generally. People are putting off having children or putting off marriage for whatever reason. More and more people are living at home with their parents. More and more people are cohabiting, which means living together before getting married. So naturally, they might be inclined to have a pet or a dog first of all, before then making the commitment of then having children or then getting married, But it's almost a case of people perhaps not fully appreciating the impact of having a dog in their lives would have, because until you're in it, it's the same with children. Until you're in it, you don't truly know the impact that it has upon your spare free time and your lives. So again, this is where it's encouraged to have these discussions and to consider these agreements as a useful point of even if you don't necessarily decide to proceed with on, it'll certainly be an opportunity to consider whether it's the right call to make and in having a pet in the first place, even. And that's what people such as myself at Co-op would be able to help people and advise people on.
Yeah, brilliant. I think this is a really, really great idea, to be honest with you. And I think we should follow suit. I know Amber Heard got the dogs, not Johnny Depp. And although I think Johnny Depp is a really, really genuine dog lover, but it should all have been written down.
And no doubt that would have cut him up. Essentially, there is a strong emotional attachment that people have to their dogs. I see it all the time with clients. I see it with friends as well, personally as well. People who have had to part ways with a dog that they love and adore and have spent so much time caring for in their years. It's heartbreaking for them. And it's incredibly difficult, or can be certainly incredibly difficult time for them to go through. Because they lose that companionship essentially.
Oh, absolutely. So, Ben, assuming you've done a Pet-Nup and everything and you split up, is it, accounted for in the Pet-Nup about visitation rights? Does that vary depending on how acrimonious the actual split was?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can include, and certainly a big part of any agreement would include visitation rights or custody arrangements, as people might refer to it, and it can be as detailed as it needs to be or granular as it needs to be, so that I gave an example earlier on about having a week on, week off arrangement, but it can be whatever it needs to be to suit your own individual circumstances, and it's about again just having these discussions and appreciating that you both have your own lives to lead, and that you'll both have your own pressures and responsibilities to deal with. So an agreement can encapsulate that and can incorporate what those arrangements would be, in the event of a separation. Because it sounds easy enough when you're together, of course, because no doubt there would be some sharing of the responsibilities. But as I say, the purpose of having a Pet-Nup would be to address these issues in the event of there being a breakup.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I know from a dog's point of view, I think so long as it's all handled well and maturely, to have visitation rights, as it were, can work. Potentially, though, if it's going to create a lot of stress, then perhaps with my behavior hat on, to think, right, let's just leave the dog with one person, build the life there, and we have to move on. And of course, that can cause huge upset to the other person. To be in a tug of war situation or have any psychological warfare going on, someone say, well, look, haven't you given them a flea treatment? I found a flea on the dog, and that can then spark acrimony, whereas it could also help build relationships between the couple as well. If it was done properly, the dog could be like a go-between.
Yeah, of course, and it is the case, sadly, that when it comes to these more acrimonious splits and separations, a dog can be used as a pawn, to try and taunt or to maintain some control over the ex-partner. Again, keep coming back to it, but communication and being able to think about these topics and the scenarios that could arise could avoid so much heartache and distress down the line if it's done properly. And you don't have to get legal advice, of course. You can. These are one of the things that you can do yourselves. But of course, we're experienced and we deal with these all the time, and we're able to guide individuals towards thinking about what would be appropriate and what would be perhaps reasonable and realistic to incorporate within an agreement. Because the way I tell people to think about it is think of it as an insurance policy. No one really likes to pay for an insurance, do they? Really, let's be frank. But my God, you're so grateful it's there when something goes wrong. And Pet-Nup is pretty much exactly the same. Think of it that way.
Yeah. No, gosh. Well, thank you, Ben. This is really kind of you to come on and explain all of this. And so you're there with the co-op group of solicitors, in case anyone listening thinks maybe I should give Ben a call. Of course, all the links are going to be in the show notes for people to get in touch, Ben. And I'm very grateful that you've joined us to talk about this kind of thorny issue. But as I say, it was in the Sunday Times. So it is something that's obviously quite out there.
Absolutely. And it just represents a shift in the public perception around these things, that there's more and more. We live in a world where you can get any information that you want. So there's certainly more awareness of how such an agreement can be entered into. But yeah, myself and my colleagues at Co-op Legal Services are experienced and are able to help people address these issues at any time, and we hope that we'll be able to be of assistance to your listeners.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Ben, for joining us today. Really, I've really appreciated it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
That's our show, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go on, rate and review the show wherever you tune into your podcasts. Thanks again, of course, to Ben Evans for joining us today, and all the links to the Co-op Legal Services team are below. Also, thanks to Mike Hanson, my producer, for all the music and production as ever. And of course, with Antinol, if you're interested in finding out more, check out their website, and you can use my code, which is AnnaWeb, at checkout to redeem your special discount. And of course, if you haven't already, go on, subscribe, because it's free, and that way you'll never miss another show. Bye for now.